Hello. We're going to get started. We still have a number of people that have not come yet, so we'll have people arriving as we come in. I'm Dawn Magretta, and I'm the Executive Director of the Schoolcraft College Foundation, and we're really thrilled to be able to offer these pop-up lunches on different topics. And I'm even more excited because we have a dynamic group of women here today who you will learn about, but a couple of them have been part of my life for decades. And I remember one in particular right here that, I was working in my early 20s, and Marie came in and she had it all. She had kids, she had high heels, she had a job, and she had daycare. So I always wanted to be like Marie when I grow up, and still do. So that's a personal piece. But we are here to celebrate women in philanthropy and the power that all of us have in this room and those allies. If you're a male in this room, we love you to be part of this. Yay. Because we need allies, right? So all of us, whether you give your time, talent, and treasure, we are all philanthropists. And I think some people think that, you hear about the millionaire women and men that give back. But this is a really cool group of women that can talk about how we impact lives every day. So at this point, I want to just introduce a couple of our board members. Stuart Baker is a foundation board member. And two of our panelists are also foundation board members, Marina Shoemaker and Robin Whitfield. So I want to turn the mic over to Dr. Glenn Cerny. He has been the president here almost 4 years, and we're excited that you're with us here today, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Well, I want to welcome everybody to Schoolcraft College. Sorry for the inconvenience, you coming into the side door. Next time you won't be doing that, so after July we'll talk a little bit about that. I want to thank you for attending, and like Dawn said, these pop-ups have been very successful. We had Cedric Howie last time doing economic updates in layperson's terms, right, Stu? Yes. And very dynamic in talking about what's going on in the economy, and so Marie is going to help us get him on the air on 950, so that's great. So I want to talk about, first of all, VistaTech 2.0. Everybody's wondering, what are you guys doing? And you see a lot of glass out there, right? We had a porch out there that didn't get used very often. It used maybe 7 days a year because of Michigan weather. We don't have the greatest weather in the summer. So we enclosed that and expanded our American Harvest restaurant, which is fantastic. But we did a little bit more. There was a courtyard over there that was open. It looked like the building wasn't done. It was like, what do you guys do? You had a little section there. Well, we made that section into all areas now for an innovation lab where you can do demonstration kitchen. We lost that when we did the brewery, but now we've got it back, and we've got a big, huge vision board that's up on top that you can see our chefs cooking. 70 seats in the auditorium. It'll be all tiered seating. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it, and so I invite everybody in this room. We're gonna have a bunch of grand openings, so please come in, and it's always making sure that our culinary is gonna stay at the state of the art, and our culinary program is a national program, so we really appreciate the support that program gets. Today I'm here to introduce Marie Osborne. So everybody knows the dulcet tones of Marie, but I'm gonna give you a little bit more. Growing up in the Detroit area, 760 WJR senior news analyst, her father would frequently ask her, "Why do you ask why so often?" She knew from a young age she wanted to be the person with a front row seat to history. In her more than 4 decades of journalism, Marie has been reported from around the US, Europe, and China. Her work has been heard on 760 WJR, ABC and CBS radio networks, The Voice of America, and BBC. She's a proud graduate of the University of Detroit Mercy, a 3-time winner of the National Edward R. Murrow Award, and the winner of a National Headliner Award. Marie has been honored multiple times by the Michigan Association of Broadcasters and Associated Press. She says the best part of her job is telling stories that keep people connected to one another to better understand. She's been an adjunct journalist instructor at Wayne State University, where she often told her students to simply be curious and be honest. Those are great traits to develop in young students. In 2017, Marie and her husband, John, lost their youngest son, John, to an undiagnosed heart condition at the age of 28. John had been pitmaster at Slo's Barbecue in Detroit. Marie and John and their 2 surviving children founded the John T. Osborne Plaid Pig Culinary Scholarship at Schoolcraft College to honor his memory. So in terms of where we are today, you're going to see a great moderating group here that Marie is going to do. And just one thing, women in philanthropy is a big thing for me. I have 3 daughters. I have a stepdaughter, and I have 4 granddaughters. And my mom had all granddaughters, 5, because between my brother and I, so I advocate for women all the time, and you see that, and Marie and I talked about that, giving confidence and doing all the things. And I will take one more statistic. 60% of our student body is women. And so that is, yes. So the power is in this room. So I want to turn it over to Marie. And
good afternoon, everyone. Or no, it's still morning. Sorry about that. Good morning. I've been up since very early this morning. That's what morning radio is. Thank you so much. Just a little side note to Dawn telling you this story about us meeting, and she just thought she admired me so much. I'll never forget, and a lot of the women in this room can relate to this. After I went back to work after maternity leave, having my first daughter, my first thing that I had to cover was something like this. And I remember I had a nice suit jacket on. I walked up to somebody that I had to say hello to, reached out and said, "Hello, I'm Marie Osborne." And there was a sucker stuck to my jacket. So nothing cuts you down to size like motherhood, right? Okay. Women's wealth is rising. I think all of us in this room really realize that. According to Morgan Stanley, women control 1/3 of total U.S. household financial assets. That's more than $10 trillion. By 2030, women in the U.S. are projected to control much of the $30 trillion in financial assets that baby boomers are going to possess. And over the last 50 years, women's wealth has risen to where they now hold about 40% of global wealth. Women are natural givers. I think most of us know that. We are generally the family caretakers, so it may not come as a surprise that we lead the way in philanthropy. Data from the Women's Philanthropy Institute finds that women are more likely to give and give more often than their male counterparts. Women have a tendency to give based on empathy for others. For men, giving is more often about a self-interest. By the way, that is according to the Women's Philanthropy Institute. I did not make that up. Women like to give to causes which benefit women and girls. That's not a surprise either. A very early example of this was the formation of the Society for Relief of Poor Women with Small Children, established 1797 here in this country, staffed solely by women. Younger women influence household charitable decisions more than older counterparts. So why do women give? And we're going to talk a lot more about that today. It's a question, as I said, that we plan to discuss with our esteemed panel here, but the research finds that giving can lead to satisfaction. Single men report greater life satisfaction when they donate. Women see greater satisfaction when they increase their giving. So it makes us feel good, right? Now, let's talk for a minute about mega giving. Mackenzie Scott was married to Jeff Bezos for 25 years. They had 4 children. The couple got divorced in 2019. Her share of the financial settlement was valued at over $38 billion, making her one of the world's wealthiest people, male or female. Well, a lot of jokes were made at her expense, I think, when that happened. What's she going to do with all that money? Blah, blah. Well, since 2019, she pledged to donate the majority of her wealth. Scott's given more than $14 billion in unrestricted funds to 1,600 nonprofit organizations. Forbes says Scott is currently worth more than $26 billion. Just this week, she launched a $250 million open call for community-focused nonprofits that the billionaire philanthropist can fund. So in other words, she opened the doors to this portion of her wealth. Through the organization Yield Giving, Scott plans to make an unrestricted $1 million donations to 250 nonprofits selected in the process. That, I would say, would be life-changing for any nonprofit. Women shining the light and leading the way. So that's it for our introduction about out there and the global wealth, our national wealth. I would like to have you meet our panelists today, and we're going to chat a little bit about what it means to give, why we give, and what it really can do, not just for ourselves, but our community. So I just want to do some quick introductions. Marina Shoemaker is here, closest to me. She's on the Schoolcraft Foundation board. She's the co-chair of Vision 2025 campaign and director of DEI External Partnerships, General Motors. In this capacity, she's responsible for expanding the company's diversity, equity, inclusion, impact through its external partnership engagements, and guiding how the company thinks about and innovatively responds to the changing demographics and needs of customers and employees worldwide. She holds an MBA from the University of Michigan, Ross School of Business, and is a big proponent of education. In her volunteer role, Marina serves on the Schoolcraft College Foundation Board of Governors, again, the co-chair of Vision 2025, the first comprehensive fundraising campaign the college has had in its 60-year history. Welcome, Marina. Robin Whitfield sitting right next to her. Robin is a Schoolcraft Foundation board member and a financial advisor and limited partner with Edward Jones Investments. As a financial advisor, Robin collaborates with clients to create strategies and approaches to help them achieve their financial goals and define their gifting and charitable plans. Welcome, Robin. Beth Meade is the president and CEO of Local Impact Alliance and Canton Community Foundation for the past decade. She's been the face of the Local Impact Alliance, and while her title is president and CEO, she prefers the title of difference maker. She can be found out in the community. LIA serves helping individuals and groups make their impacts in areas most important to them. And throughout Beth's tenure, the Local Impact Alliance has enjoyed tremendous growth, growing from its original charter as the Canton Community Foundation and now serving host organizations for the community foundations of Canton, Plymouth, and Westland. In addition, Beth and her team have managed more than 125 funds, including a number of agency funds and giving circles. Prior to moving to the nonprofit world, Beth enjoyed a long career in written marketing and media. Welcome, Beth. Ruselda Villanueva Johnson is the CEO of the Rhonda Walker Foundation. Welcome. Ruselda has contributed her professional experience in overall executive management. She's held executive positions as COO and CEO at national and international organizations like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Habitat for Humanity, and the Urban League, receiving several recognitions. Big Brothers Big Sisters was listed as one of the top 10 organizations in the country. At Habitat for Humanity, she was involved in the production of a video that received an Emmy Award and at the Urban League, she was recognized as raising the most money in the Midwest. She's currently the CEO, as we said, of the Rhonda Walker Foundation. Welcome, Ruselda. Now, we're going to start with some questions, but we're also going to have the opportunity for you to ask questions. So if you think of something while we're chatting here for the next little bit, by all means, just keep it, and we'll come by with a mic and get some of those questions from the audience very shortly. Let's just open this up first by talking a little bit with our guests here about when personal philanthropy began with them. And Marina, let's start with you on that.
First of all, good morning, everyone, and we're really pleased to have you here. Personal philanthropy for me started at a super young age. I grew up in very humble beginnings. My dad was really the recipient of a lot of charity and giving in his life. It was really important to him that as he continued, that he do in kind. They remind me, because I don't remember, that I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and it was a particularly difficult time in the community that I lived. I'm from Benton Harbor, Michigan, and if you know that area of the state, it's never recovered from the 60s. And they say that I went in, I got my piggy bank and said, I need to give this to somebody. I want to donate this to whomever needs it. And they were so moved by that that they took me to, I think it was United Way. United Way was moved by the effort, and I was featured in some newspaper. But for me, the bigger calling was, how can I help? And in my own way, that was that piggy bank. From there, candidly, try to give when I could. I don't know about all of you, but you'd sit down and you say, can I afford, or can I give $25 here, $50 here? A lot on my budget, certainly, but certainly not to the extent that others have been able to contribute. Fast forward to today, through some luck, if you will, and some good stock buying, we were able to establish a family foundation, and I'm sure that you're familiar with those. Something we'd never heard about before, and we were able to actually gift stock versus cash to establish that. And it was through that I've been able to do the most charitable giving. So now I write a very different check. I'm just very, very pleased to have had that opportunity.
We're going to want to talk more about that here as this continues, because that's something, the family thing is something that I've heard recently about as well. Robin, can you tell us a little bit about your personal philanthropy?
Yep. Most people that know me today think my idea of roughing it is slow room service. Actually, I grew up in a very modest home. I'm 8 of 9 children, lived on a farm. Everything I learned about investing, I learned about on a farm. Believe me, it relates. But my father died when I was very young, and so I was the recipient of other people's charitable work. So as I became a professional and had my own money to make a decision with, I started feeling that need to give back as well. When we raised our children started getting an allowance at age 3. They got 25 cents a week, and they got to decide what they wanted to do with it. And they could buy a bubble gum at the supermarket when we went. They could ride the pony at Meijer if they wanted to, but they started having their own money. And as they grew up, we gave our children more money. And the thing was, they could keep 50%. They had to put 25% towards their school or college education, and 25% needed to go to charity. And then as we raised we had to move them to a monthly paycheck because they started getting a lot of money. Because we also started making them pay for their own tops at a certain age and a Christmas present at a certain age. So being that my husband and I are both financial advisors, this really kind of makes sense from that perspective. And one of the most impactful times for me was when my daughter saved her money for the entire year, and she was like 9 or 10 years old, and she had her dad drive her up to the mall, and she went to every bell ringer at every entrance and divided her money and gave it to him. So when your kids do stuff like that and they think about others before they think about themselves, you know you've done a good job. Now as we move into the next chapter of our lives, my husband and I did our estate planning, and Schoolcraft College is our legacy, because we believe, like Nelson Mandela, get that out, But education is the most powerful weapon we have to change the world. And we as women can do that.
Robin, let's just change, or not Robin, I'm sorry. Beth, let's just change this up just a little bit. What exactly is a giving circle?
So giving circles are groups of people who have common interests and not necessarily deep pockets, who want to come together and pool their resources and make a bigger impact. So we have 3 different giving circles that we manage at the Local Impact Alliance. The first one is a very traditional giving circle, which is a group of Canton employees that do payroll deductions, make their donations. They have a committee at the township, and then they come to us and say, here's who we would like to make our grants to. The second one that we manage is a group called Eagles for Children. It's a very large group. It's made up of members of country clubs, primarily around the state of Michigan, but we are moving into other states. There's about 6,000 members of that giving circle. They donate $2 for every eagle that is scored on their golf course. Last year, they donated $1.2 million to 144 different local children's charities.
Wow.
And you know, for a country club member, $2 for an eagle, there's about 50 eagles scored at a club. It's $100, less than the cost of a bottle of wine. Impact is enormous. And the last one, which I really wanted to concentrate on today, is our women's giving circle. It's called the Giving Hope Women's Giving Circle. And it's made up of about 100 women, primarily local to the Livonia, Plymouth, Canton, Northville area. And they've created an endowment. And they work together not only to grant back into the community, talking about the things that are most important to them, which are women, children, and families, but they also do education. So they want to find out what can they be doing better to make a difference in their community. So
fantastic. Wow. Ruselda, in our opening, we talked about how women like to give to women, organizations that benefit women and children. And the Rhonda Walker Foundation does just that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, happy Women's Month.
Yes.
Celebrating our women today, and thank you for having me here today. At the Rhonda Walker Foundation, we're celebrating 20 years of service, and what we're doing at our organization is we recruit teens from 8th grade through 12th grade from the Detroit Public Schools, and we try to fill in the gap of when schools are in the suburbs, their per child amount is significantly more than what it is for Detroit public school students. So we fill the gap in, and most of our donors, I would say probably 80% of our donors are women, and so we're pleased to report that. And as you mentioned earlier, once they're in, they have a tendency to give more as time goes on, and so we're very appreciative of that. Rhonda Walker had this vision 20 years ago, and it was a small group of women that came together, and now we have a full board, we have a full operations staff also on board with our programs, and so we're very fortunate that we have women such as you in this room that really believe in the programs, and education is key to, I think, our survival in moving forward.
Excellent. Rhonda's just such a dynamo. She's really amazing. The fact that she founded it 20 years ago is incredible to me, because she looks so young, and but she's dedicated her professional life to this. Yeah. So, Robin, let's go back to you for a second and talk about women as key leaders or decision makers in personal and corporate giving. How prevalent is that? Do they operate differently than men? Tell us a little bit about that.
Thanks. That's a really good question, and I think I'm best able to answer that from the perspective of women's personal giving, because I work with couples, individuals, to plan their life and their wealth financially. From the time they get their first job until hitting retirement and through retirement. And like you were talking about, the statistics tell us what we already know. Women give because of how it makes them feel and how it makes other people feel, where men are a little bit more self-inclined. But it's just the difference between men and women. We love the fact that everyone gives, but as people go through their retirement journey, we see that as people age and have more money, so as you build your career, we start earmarking a little bit more for retirement. I don't think it's going to surprise anyone in this room, but every day, 10,000 people turn age 65. This is not just a wave of retirement, this is a tsunami as the baby boomers go out. And so now you have people who have spent their lives acquiring wealth, and now they've come to the stage about, what do I do with it? And I see in these conversations that women generally lead that side of the conversation. So we've had a conversation about acquiring wealth, and now we have to plan the distribution of that wealth. And that's where women lead the way. And I would like to share a couple of statistics and stages that we go through so that you can kind of wrap your mind around what your likely trajectory is and personalize it to yourselves. We find that there are 4 stages of retirement. The first one is anticipation, so it's that early stage, doing that last minute planning. And then we have liberation, woohoo, the day is here, right? And then we have reinvention. What are we gonna do now, right? And then the period of reflection. And really that is where we see a lot more giving. People, when they retire today, want to retire differently. And in our parents' generation, it was a time for relaxation. And now it's a time of what's the next chapter, the reinvention. And this is where we see women lead the way in giving back, not only with their time and talents, but with their money. In the early stages, when you're acquiring wealth, we see women giving of their time and talents more. Because of course you got kids going to school and they've got t-ball and basketball, and then they get into high school and the costs get astronomical, and then we got to figure out college. And then finally, so what do you have? You don't have a lot of money, but you have a time and you have a passion to make a difference in the world. So we'll see time and talents in the early stages. When we get to the liberation stage, that early stage of retirement, is where that volunteering kicks in. Again, even more time and talent. When we get to the reinvention stage, this is where we want to stay busy, but we're also thinking about, how do I stay engaged with things that I really care about? And you start having the resources to start really making a difference. And you get to that final stage, that reflection stage, and you're like, if I'm going to have money left over to bequeath, do I want to do it now while I'm alive and I can see the benefits of my work? And that's where we see the giving really accelerate, because you've lived a really full life and you've seen the challenges, because 50 years ago, women were not in the workplace as they are today. And the reason why women control more wealth is because women have access to education and we're working more, and it's not, while it's still a somewhat male-dominated society, women are making huge inroads. They're willing to plant a tree that they will never sit under the shade of, because they think about the first. Remember, it's how you feel, right? So as my husband and I started this journey and how women go, we had to first identify our why. Why do we do the things we do? And in our case, our why was to do meaningful work for the benefit of others, leaving things a little bit better than we found them. So as you think about your journey and the power that is in this room with all of you, think about your why and what you can do as women, not only supporting other women, but education to help those women get where they need to be, and really make a difference in the world. Because doing meaningful work for others is very gratifying. And we're all going to have grandchildren. Let's leave them a better world, and you have the power to do it. That's what I see and what I feel is a financial advisor working through people through the different generations of their life.
Marina, can you talk a little bit about how women of color get involved in philanthropy and their practices, please? A little bit about that.
Oh, happy to share what I've learned as well. I think there's been a misconception around women of color and the type of philanthropy that they do. Now, sadly, for economic reasons, they're not writing the big checks, as I shared with you. It wasn't only until recently that I could write a bigger check. They usually gave, again, their time, their talent, their treasure, but they also gave what they could, usually to neighbors, to family members. I mean, it's all forms of giving, if you will. As some of those women have started to progress in their careers, they're starting to look at the intersections between identity and race. I'm a Black woman, I'm an Asian woman. What's important, or what do I wish I had that I don't, but that I'm now in a position to give. And do remember that for most of us, myself included, growing up, there weren't really prominent role models in your communities capable of standing up and making those big published announcements of giving. So it wasn't until later that you started to even see those models and to realize that it's within your purview to be able to do as well. So I just wanted to dispel the myth that, yes, it's there. I'm looking around the room and I'm very gratified to see the diversity that's here in the room. And I have to believe that each of you here in your own way has contributed or given. And at the end of the day, it's not the how much you've given, it's that you've given and the why. And so that's why I was really excited to hear about Beth and the giving circle component, because I think that's an incredibly powerful way to take a little multiplied by X to create a lot. And everyone can feel good about how you contribute and the fact of what you're rallying around.
And Beth, I wanted to get back to you on the giving circle and to just piggyback on what Marina just said. I think that people who, think, well, I can't write a $2,000 check, but maybe $100 is possible. Well, when it's grouped in with a group, then you make some real impact. I have a friend who belongs to a giving circle, and they donate $1,000 once a year, and I think there's 100 of them, and they go out and have a grand dinner and then decide who to give the money to, and they have a ball doing it. So how do you start a giving circle?
You find people with a common interest. So it's very simple to do, and as women, I think we all have friends or people that are part of our book club or people that are part of our work group that, you're having conversations with one another and talking about things you've seen on the news and how can I make a difference? I heard this story and it's really got me upset and I don't know how to do this. That's why we as a foundation exist, to help these groups to not have to put together their own private foundation.
Right.
You can come to a group like us and we're gonna help you with developing your committee and investing your money, so you don't need a finance committee, you don't need an investment manager, you don't need to do your audit, you don't need to do your 990. We're gonna do all of that. And to kind of piggyback on what these ladies were saying, this statistic really amazed me, that the average Michigander gives $25 a month. That's $300 a year. And yet the impact that we're making locally is just amazing. So every little bit that you do is still going to give you that great feeling of accomplishment and helping others, which I think is what we're all put on this earth to do.
Astonishing what the metropolitan Detroit area does for giving. I've heard from lots of organizations that say this is the hotbed for donating. Our radio station does many charitable events, but there are two in particular that raise over $1 million each for their respective organization.
Little bit at a
being
time.
One of them.
All a little bit at a time.
And a lot of that is made up with $25 donations.
Exactly.
So it certainly all does make a big difference. Ruselda, tell us a little bit about how you interface with companies that come to get interns or want to have some of the girls that go through your program to work for them.
Oh, that's an amazing question. Right now, we have companies coming to us like left and right. They're looking for Rhonda Walker Foundation team to come and work at their companies. Because our kids are poised, they're polished, we try to give them, we pour into them education just constantly. And so when the companies come to us, not only are they taking a group of our teams on a tour to learn more about, their industry, but then they're also welcoming them as interns or job shadowing or potential employees. And so the success of a company when they bring in our children to be interns is when they ultimately hire them. So they're looking at that as a success. So they'll bring them in, train them, give them all the tools they need. And our teams are now learning that, especially with the automotive industry, that I wasn't even aware that there's doctors on staff, there's nurses on staff. There's so many different disciplines within the industry that our teams are being exposed to. So now when they're driving by a building such as Lear or Masco or BASF or what have you, they're now envisioning the different disciplines that are within that company versus, oh, it's just automotive or it's just this or that. And so it's really eye-opening for them to get exposed to that. And we're increasing our opportunities for our teams now and also supplying scholarships for them. So to learn more about Schoolcraft and to see how we can, bring our teams here for a tour, what have you, I think is great exposure for our teams as well.
Yeah, the employee market being what it is right now, the employment market being what it is, I can see why. Not to mention that the young women who go through your program are fully capable of meeting the workplace and its demands. I know that that's what you strive for. I'm going to throw this question out to all of you. Many of us work in large companies or large corporations, and maybe we'd like to direct where our company or corporation is going to do some giving. How does that conversation even begin if you're just a somebody in the corporation? How does that begin? I don't know who would like to take that on first.
I'll jump in first.
Please.
Usually it's somebody in the HR department that will reach out to management and say, a group of us would like to be more charitable. How can we do this? And then, we get phone calls about that. How can we do this where our employees are going to be able to make an impact? And can you help us do it because we don't know the laws? And, we do stay on top of all of those things to make sure that we're doing everything legally and we're vetting all of the organizations that they work with. So, we're happy to help any organization, even if we just are, somebody that you can tap into to find out what's best for your organization.
Marina, how do you think they should come about?
It happens different ways, and what I was going to share is that at General Motors, there's a recognition program that's been established for salaried employees. And effectively, when you see employees doing good, you have the opportunity to acknowledge what they've done well, aligned with our key behaviors, and award them, I'll say, points relative to that. Well, certainly when we had the Ukraine war, and there's been some flooding situations and others, and as you can appreciate, there's a lot going on in the world right now. And sadly, we can't necessarily sponsor everything. However, many employees, as you mentioned, have come together and said, hey, can we take our recognition points, and instead of using that to redeem them against something for me personally, can I then give those toward a relief effort for these different organizations? So, we vet them certainly to make sure that they're legitimate organizations, but that gives them the opportunity to do some directed giving to things that are of interest to them that we know that we might not be able to otherwise, set some funds aside for. So that's been very effective.
That's great. Anyone else want to weigh in on that? How do we step forward in our corporations? I think that's a couple of great ideas. Just do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just step forward and do it.
Yeah. With our firm, it's all built around, that's our culture. So we have many opportunities to have payroll deductions done, not only to support our colleagues, but to support our clients that might be victims of devastating wildfire, flood, or what have you. And you can just log in and say, I want my $25 a paycheck contribution to go to this. Of course, we're leaders in some organizations like Alzheimer's. We are the national partner for the Alzheimer's Association, but of course that affects us, deeply as a company. but our employees have the opportunity to really kind of pick where they want their money to go.
Dawn, you want to open the floor for some questions? We'd love to hear from our group here. Anybody who, don't be shy. We'd love to hear what you have to say about philanthropy and maybe some personal stories of your own that you may have, maybe a way that you have found to be philanthropic in a way in your own community that's helpful. While they're mulling this over a little bit.
I can't believe we're here. Obviously, we aren't, we don't live up to the stereotype, the old stereotype that all women do are talk and, you know.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, my name is Sharon Harbin, and I have a couple questions for the guests or the panelists for the Rhonda Walker Foundation. I was wondering, how does your foundation, does it impact the hub, Horizon Upward Bound situation? They sound so similar, where you take the high school children and then you mentor and pour into them. Is it similar? Or are you familiar with HUB? I'm sorry.
Familiar with the other organization. However, with the Rhonda Walker Foundation, our goal is to make sure that each of the teens that come through our program graduate high school, and we have 100% that go into college, and 95% of our teens graduate college. Mm-hmm. What we're finding now in the last 2.5 years since I've been with the Rhonda Walker Foundation is I'm exploring where's that 5%? What's happening to that 5% that's not graduating? And we're finding that they're running out of funds. They're running out of dollars. Mm-hmm. Life happens, and so now we're supplementing the 5% so that they can go back and finish school, so that we can now say not only 100% graduate high school, but 100% now graduate college. And so we're just pouring into them constantly. I guess the greatest thing is that their mentors not only stay with the teen for 5 years, but carry on beyond that and watch them as they progress through college as well.
Okay, yeah, they're very similar programs, but the hub is probably about 60 years old.
Okay.
And as a businesswoman, I had an opportunity to go out there and start a Toastmasters program with communication, and we did an etiquette segment and interviewing, and we did it for about 10 years.
Okay.
And it you know, what you're doing, it just really impacts their lives.
It does.
A difference, you know, and they succeed from that.
Thank you. I'd like to learn more about that.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I would too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, okay. And then just one other thing I just wanted to add. When you get into the philanthropy, how have you, or do you ever look at that whole fair trade area? I know in my walk with this, which, again, I'm in that category where I can't do the big giving, but in different businesses that I've been involved with, we would always try to look at the fair trade. My daughter did jewelry at one time, and then so she'd buy these paper-made beads that were from, you know, African communities, and you know, where you're making a difference like that. Does it still fall under that same category, or exactly what?
Anybody interface with that at all?
Yeah.
I can start off something. You mean like, I think like in-kind gifts is what I call it in our world. And Jen, you know the numbers. My tech and database data person is here. But we have started to track our in-kind giving. Everything from auction items to cars that might be donated. And that is a significant piece, and I think it's something that we shouldn't, you know, negate, not that it's not important, because it is. I can't remember in our Vision 2025 campaign, do you remember how much, but it's probably $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. And I think it's something we weren't tracking as much, and but those are people that we need to acknowledge and thank as well. So, yeah, that was my take on that.
Ruselda, I just want to go back on one other question, because again, we're talking about philanthropy. There are many forms of philanthropy, and mentorship for you is such a cornerstone for your organization. That's a way to, pursue a philanthropic endeavor, is to be a mentor, or maybe if you're not sure you want to give to an organization, maybe that's your way in, is to, well, maybe I can mentor somebody and then see how this organization works. Would you agree with that?
I would. Mentorship is key. I think even as adults, it's always good to have a mentor that you can bounce ideas off of. But most of our mentors, come from the corporations. They're learning about us. We have panelists, not only with Rhonda Walker, who's amazing, but also with the teens. They're learning to be panelists and answer questions on our behalf. But mentorship is key. It's very important to us. And, like I say, they'll stay with the team for 5 years and then beyond to help them through their endeavor through life.
Such an important relationship.
We have another question here.
So thank you so much. This is amazing. Pastor Oberman, I'm an executive director in Inkster. And I just have a question about philanthropy and how do we tell our story to engage philanthropists? And also, if anyone knows Mr. Bestow's wife, who's looking for an organization to give $1 million, we're here. So, right there with you.
So I can answer that. When we're asking for contributions from companies or individuals, we start with our case. And the case is that, we have to fill the gap in terms of education. We all know that in Detroit, there's a huge gap compared to other schools. And so we're here to fill that gap. When we go to the schools in the Detroit area, we ask them to recommend students to us that have the potential to do better and to learn more. Not so much a trouble student, but a student that has potential. We take them because they could go left or they could go right. And so we take the student and we pour in, as I mentioned before, all that we have. We know that the gap is about $7,000 compared to other schools. And so our donors are aware of that. And so they may give dollars in a tone of $7,000, or they may say, I'll support a grade, or I'll support a pillar of career development or mentorship, or they may support a program. We have a camp where we take the kids out of Detroit where they've never been out of Detroit before. And we just have them unplug, put your phones away, and this is called Camp I Can, so no one can say I can't do this. And we do the zip lining, canoeing, archery, all kinds of things. And then there's components in there as well, such as mental health workshops. There's financial literacy workshops. There's workshops that address, the teen, what they're dealing with in school right now. And our teens, we have to face it, these last 3 years haven't had your traditional schooling. Their schooling was in front of a screen. Their schooling was, if they were back in school, a mask. So they couldn't really see, like, are you smiling? Are you angry with me? Or are you frustrated with me? So all of this, we're trying to work through with our teens, and we're making progress. But all of those elements we have to take into consideration to bring the teen whole as they move forward.
Marina, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I had two things. I hope that I can get in the time that we have. First of all, I think your question was, how do you tell your story to companies who are in positions to support? Candidly, make sure you know that company. Understand where the priorities of the company are, what are they focusing on, and how can what you do align with that? Just being quite candid, because we get a lot of inquiries all the time. But we have to then make a selection, where do we want to align? And that alignment, I can assure you, is going to be what's important to us and how is what you're doing align with that. It sounds a little crude, but no, again, you have to narrow where that is so that you can continue to stay true to what you're trying to brand yourself as, even as a company in the community, whether it's local or around the world. The other thing I would be remiss as the co-chair of the Vision campaign, remiss, if I didn't go back to a couple things that Dr. Cerny talked about and something that's really of importance here at the college and for the Vision 2025 campaign. You know, more than half of the people who attend here are women. Nearly 60-some-odd% are on financial aid, even though Schoolcraft has an incredibly affordable program. They're still being supported. And the campaign itself covers a couple of things. Student success, education and workforce development, both in the applied and the skilled trades area community, Livonia and the surrounding area. But the one that I'd like you to think about is Greatest Needs. Greatest Needs provides small but very meaningful grants one time when that unexpected thing happens. The car may break down, I don't have transportation to get where I'm going. I think what's been most powerful about that is for those who've been the recipients of those grants, more than 90% have been able to complete their schooling, and nearly 2/3 have been able to then go on and continue schooling beyond Schoolcraft. So again, if you're looking at the checkbook and saying, but I can only know that you're only multiplied, could be the difference from someone completing or not in this community. So please give that consideration as well.
Well, thank you, and I didn't even have to tell her that. That's a great board member. We have time for one more.
Also, I just want to say about storytelling, being able to tell your story, because that's something I know a little bit about. It is so important you tell your story properly and get to the core of who you are, what you need. And just a suggestion, you go to a college or a university, go to their marketing or journalism department and say, is somebody here interested in doing some volunteer work to help us tell our story? And that means, somebody could just proofread your copy. Someone can just proofread your video, and it might be a step in the right direction.
Can I make one more comment to
Yes.
that? There's a gentleman, are you familiar with the organization Life Remodeled?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he is publishing a book, and it's all about how to improve your nonprofit, how to tell your story. So you may want to reach out to them as well.
Just one last thing I want to say, just as because we talk about why people want to give and all of that, and I just wanted to say very quickly, philanthropy can also heal. That's the reason I personally came here to Schoolcraft. My son had been a student here for a year. He died unexpectedly, and we were here 6 months after he died, knowing that we wanted to make some lasting difference for his life because he died so young. And I told Dawn this story, was that when we walked out after we talked to Victoria, who has since retired, but I looked at my husband in the car and I said, you know, for the first time in 6 months, I feel a little better. And so every time, yes, it's terrible, it's been a burden, you're never over it, all that stuff. But when we talk about the pig, as we call it in our house, and it gives us healing. It's been a healing thing. And when we came to the dinners here with other scholarship people who'd set up, we met a lot of people who'd set up memorial scholarships, and they all could tell you the same thing. So that's something to consider as well.
Is there just a minute left?
Yes, if you'd like.
I think
we can do that.
Thank you. Giving of time and talents and making the most of your money. We as women are in charge of this. And the important thing is when you are at the stage where you're trying to give of your money, you want to make sure that you do it in the most tax efficient manner. Once you are 70 and a half, you can do similar to what Marina has been able to accomplish with her family foundation, is you can give your money, appreciated stocks or money out of your IRA, to an organization of your choice. It has to be a charitable organization, tax-free. Think about that, tax-free, and the power that has. If this is coming out of your IRA and you have to do your required minimum distribution, and there's an extra $1,000, if you take that money first, the government's going to take about 30% out of it. You're going to have $700 left to give to the charity of your choice. If you make what we call a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution, you can send that money directly to your charity of choice, and they get the full $1,000. And we're talking about how little things make a big difference. Think about what that extra $300 can accomplish in this situation. That's how you can make a lasting impact and feel better about what you do, because your money will go farther. If you are involved in a charitable organization and it needs a little bit more organization, it needs some legs under it, I submit to you that Schoolcraft College has a course that you can take here on managing a charitable organization. And it's like I think the class meets 4 times. I have signed up for it because I want to be in that next group to kind of understand the challenges that organizations face and how they need to better run. But we've talked about education is power. And if we want women to continue to advance, and if you want the charitable organizations that you care about to get better, we need to do it through education. And many times as I'm planning with people to help them plan the education for their children and their grandchildren, we use community college as part of that equation. You can go to the community college for a fraction of the cost and get those basic courses that are transferable out of the way, and then transfer to a 4-year university to get the degree in whatever you're looking for. This is beneficial on many ways. Not only is it financially a sound decision to make, they don't miss out on anything by coming to a school like Schoolcraft College, because we still have all the sports and the clubs and that type of thing. They can still have that rich environment. But it is very competitive to get into a university as a freshman, as a graduating senior to get in, right? But many students get to that 4-year university, and if within that first year or 2, they decide this isn't the school for me. Well, if that university brought in 5,000 freshmen and they've just lost 1,000, now they've got a bubble. They got to fill that 1,000. If you have gone to community college and gotten those credits, you can transfer in as a sophomore or a junior and end up graduating from the school you couldn't get into in the beginning because the competition was so hard.
Yeah.
So if we're going to continue to make a difference as women and celebrate Women's Month, these are some of the strategies that you can use to help the next generation and be financially smart about it. Because I have to be financially smart about it. I'm a financial advisor. I got to tell you this stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. I think I could introduce Chef, correct? We just want to say thank you. Okay. So as you all know, the culinary program here at Schoolcraft is just phenomenal. Nationally recognized, as we heard and have heard so many times. Chef Beland is the director of the culinary program, the faculty chef team, and most importantly, we want to thank our culinary arts students who prepared and are serving today's lunch. Be prepared to have your socks knocked off, okay? They are really good. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating today. We hope this was beneficial. Thank you to this panel. Thank you.